Good morning. I did do these examples in class, so you should watch the recording, but I'll go ahead and make a little video for you. So on this problem right here, we have our equal sign, and we do have a fraction right here. So one thing that he can do to get rid of fractions is to multiply by the denominator. So we have a 5 in our denominator. So what we can do is multiply everything in our problem by that denominator. So we can go like this, 5x, and then minus 45. So this is the distributive property. You have to multiply everything in the problem if we want to do this. And then times 5 on this side. Now, 5 times 3/5, the reason why this is nice and why this works is when we do 3 times 5, top times top, bottom times bottom, we get 15 over 5. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. So essentially what happens here is the 5's cancel out and just leave you with 3x. And now that the fraction is gone, I can continue solving the problem. And notice I have, my end goal is to have x by itself. I have an x on the left side and an x on the right side. So I'm going to cancel out this one because I'm just going to move it to the right side. I'm getting it away from this 45 right here. And so 5x minus 5x gives me 0, which is why I'm subtracting it, because I want it to go away completely. And I get negative 45 equals negative 2x over here. And then finally, one last step to get this x all by itself. This is 2 times x. Anytime you see a number next to a variable, it's called the coefficient, but it's multiplication. This is negative 2 times something. So if we want to cancel it out, we will divide it. We only want to get rid of the 2, not the x, so that's why I use division, because negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. So that leaves me with 1x right there, just 1x. So we could just write that as x. But again, what I do to one side, I have to do the other to keep it balanced. And we end up with, if you put this in your calculator, we could leave it as 45 over 2, or it turns into 22.5 when you put it in your calculator. So I use the subtraction property to do the minus 5. Then I use the division property to divide by negative 2 on both sides. And then up here, when I multiply by 5, this is the multiplication property. And our solution, the end here. Okay, on number 2, I have a similar situation. I see that I have a fraction. Maybe I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm going to do the same thing. Multiply everything in the problem by 5. Now there are other ways that you can approach this problem, but I find that for students getting rid of the fraction early on, it just makes the process a little faster for them. So 5 times 1/5, same thing will happen here that happened up here. The 5's are going to cancel out. So I can think of it like this. 5 times 1, and then 1 times 5. 5 over 1 times 1 over 5 will just end up being 5 divided by 5, which is 1. So again, we end up with 1x here. And then 5 times 13, see, that's going to be 75x. Again, we have to multiply everything. So this is the part that students forget. They're like, oh yeah, multiply by the denominator, but then they forget that they need to multiply everything in the problem. Got to keep it balanced. Everything is going to get multiplied by 5. 5 times 20 is 100, so 110 there for 5 times 22. And so once you've done that, you've multiplied everything by 5, you notice there are no fractions left. And now we can focus on simplifying the problem. So a lot of things we can combine here. So when I say simplify, we mean on each side. So I'm going to look at the left side first. I look at each side independently, and I say, okay, what can I combine over here? So this is 1x plus 75, so we get 76x. Those are like terms, same variable, so I can combine them. And then I look at the right side and think the same thing. What are my like terms? Well, I notice I have a 5 and a 110 that do not have variables. So that makes them like terms because they don't have variables. And I can use something called the commutative property to rearrange this problem and put my like terms together. 5 plus 110. I do want to point out that the negative sign that was on the 45 is still on the 45. So I can add 5 plus 110 and get 115 minus 45x equals 76x. So just to recap what I've done, okay? So I combined like terms. I did the x plus 75, x equals 76, x. And then I used the commutative property to rearrange. And then I combine like terms again. I combined the 5 plus 110 to get the 115. So far all I've done, this was the simplify, I call this the simplify phase. Not every problem needs to be simplified, but most of the time they do. So I've combined like terms, I use the commutative property to rearrange, and then I combine like terms one more time. Now that everything has been combined, I have no more like terms, I can start solving. And again, I always like to start by thinking about where's my variable. I want 1x. Right now I see an x on the left and an x on the right side. So thinking ahead, if I get rid of this minus 45, that'll cancel it out and only leave me an x on the left side. I want it to go away completely. So I'm going to use the addition property plus 45x because negative 45x plus 45x gives me 0. That's why this cancels out. Addition property. If you add an opposite, you get 0. And I have to add it to both sides to keep my equation balanced. So 76 plus 45 gives me 121. And I bring down the 115. And I end up here now with 121x equals 115. Let me double check something because I did this problem earlier. We did these in class. So I did it a different way in class. Let's see, 115 over 111. Yeah, I should get 111 here. 5 times 13. Oh, this is 65. Oh man. That's what I get for trying to do it in my head, right? So that ends up being 66. And this is 66. So it's 111. I knew something was off. That's what I get for trying to do it in my head. So I messed up right here. 5 times 13 is 65, not 76. Ooh. 65, so then 1 plus 65 is 66. There we go. The process I've been doing is the same though, I just multiplied wrong right there. So then 66 plus 45 is 111. There we go. And so I notice I got 111 times x. I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to do that division thing again that I talked about earlier. I only want to cancel out the 111 and not the x. So I use division here, okay, because 111 divided by 111 is 1. So this cancels out, but it cancels out to just 1x. So that's just x, and then we'll leave this as 115 over 111. You can make it a decimal if you want, but it's going to be an irrational number. It's going to be 1.036036036. So we're just going to leave it as a fraction, because it's more of an exact answer when you leave it as a fraction and not try to change it to a decimal. I hope this video was helpful. I also worked these out in class, so you can watch the recordings as well.